Hello and welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. Well, we come to you with some fresh news and welcome and refreshing news at that, to hear of a player actually wanting to come to Carlton as opposed to hearing of more players wanting to depart. Well, that player is 22-year-old Campbell Chesser, who has turned down a 2-year extension from the West Coast Eagles in preference to head back to Victoria to come and play in the navy blue. Now, Chesser was highly touted in his draft year, and what he brings to the table in terms of most appealing aspects is his speed and explosiveness, which is obviously a need that we are crying out for. This is a guy who blitzed the 2-kilometre time trial at the draft combine, posting a time of 6 minutes and 20 seconds, which had him ranked just outside the top 5. And he actually comes with athletic pedigree as well, being a highly touted state-ranked sprinter in his junior years. In his draft year, he was vice-captain of Vic Country, and heading into that 2021 season, was widely seen to be a top 10 draft prospect. But a meniscus injury in his second game for the season all but derailed his draft year and saw him slide to West Coast at a bargain pick 14. Unfortunately, injuries have followed him into the AFL, with it largely disrupting his senior career to date. An ankle injury shortened his first season, but was then able to play 14 and 18 games across the next 2 seasons, with a knee injury proving another speed hump that he had to overcome across that period. An ankle injury once again halted his preparation for 2025, making the decision to undergo surgery to fix it and miss the first half of the season as a result. He was then able to work his way back in the waffle, playing 7 games before earning a recall to the Eagles side in round 21, where he finished off the season strongly in arguably his brightest showing to date as a wingman. This included a career best 22 disposals and 10 contested possessions, and prompted the Eagles to table a 2-year offer to him that he has since now chosen not to take up and request this trade to Carlton. While some of you out there, I imagine, probably hearing this and more so probably hyper-focusing on the fact that he's coming from West Coast, we have to remember now that this is what we have here is a player that is very much a low-risk investment. The risk versus reward is massively skewed in our favour, as he will come via the trade of, perhaps a late draft pick at best, or perhaps a shuffling of late draft spots with the Eagles, which you see some clubs do during the trade period in order to get, someone who has battled with form, injury, or potentially just hasn't fulfilled their potential. So what we have is a very, very big potential bargain. So in short, he's a highly touted player who has battled with injury, and his end to 2025 suggests that he is at the stage where he's starting to realise his potential and maybe take his game to another level. One of our massive deficiencies, of course, is our lack of leg speed at the contest and on the outside especially as well. So Chesser could definitely fill a wing role, which is the spot where he started to excel late in 2025 for the Eagles. So he's 22 years of age, as I mentioned, so youth is well and truly on his side, and coming off 4 years of development. So we're talking true high upside to boot. At worst, he's a low-risk gamble that doesn't pay off due to injuries if they continue, hopefully not, and becomes nothing more than perhaps depth if he doesn't take the next step in his game. But at best, he could develop into a player that made him so highly touted at junior level and become a serious best 22 role player in our side. I think that's a major sort of shortfall or deficiency in our team, is we don't have enough pure role players. You look at the best sides across the journey, Hawthorn, Richmond had a whole heap of role players, small forwards, guys that could run all day, outside run, all that sort of stuff. No genuine superstars outside of the likes of, Jack Rewald, Trent Cotchin, Dusty Martin. But if you think back to guys that were in their premiership team, they really didn't have too many out-and-out superstars. So the strategy that we're taking here is kind of a bit of a, you might call it a moneyball approach in terms of going for guys that may not have fulfilled their potential at other teams due to injury, form, everything else. And you just think back to other teams that have done this in the past. Sydney's probably the best example of this. They've gone for Ted Richards, who at Essendon, battled injury himself, form as well, and actually turned into a pretty decent defender for the Swans across their, early to mid 2000s when they were, just winning flag after flag. And Geelong's probably another team as well. They've kind of probably targeted it more so in terms of the draft as opposed to the trade period. But, they've gone for guys that, other teams really haven't looked at. They've looked in nooks and crannies that other teams haven't and really extracted gems from the draft. So we're kind of trying to take a different strategy on things, which I really enjoy and am, a bit buoyed by, I think, because, gone are the days now where we're trying to splash cash for A graders or guys on the cusp of being A graders that just haven't worked out. We think of Sard, we think of Zachy Williams, highly touted prospects that come across with, in their own right, issues with regards to injuries, more so Zachy Williams on that front there, but, getting paid big money to play a role and potentially not being played, to their best ability, but also not capturing that level of form that we were hoping when we actually traded for those players. So Campbell Chesser, as I said, low risk, high reward, could really turn out to be anything. We don't know. And why not just take the risk? It's well worth it. As I said, he's not going to cost us draft capital, trade capital. And when it comes to the salary cap side of things, hey, he's going to be on, cheap as chips type stuff. And, that kind of fits in line with clearing up a lot of space in our salary cap, TDK leaving, Sauce leaving, Doherty retiring. So we have a whole host of, potentially McGovern moving on as well. So we have a bit of a war chest, we'll call it, that we could really use for free agency next season when there are a host of big names coming out of contracts. So I don't mind this strategy. We're not, overspending. We're not doing anything silly like St Kilda are potentially, because they're targeting guys that I don't think are A graders, but they're splashing cash on guys that, may be role players, but not quite to the level. Whereas I think, what we have here with Campbell Chesser, we've got a young player, highly touted in his draft here, who by and large has been kind of, his development has been stunted by these injuries. So started at the back end of 2025, as I mentioned, to really show some bright, promising signs, and hence the reason why the Eagles were so quick to try and re-sign him for 2 years, not just the one. And we have come in and swindled him because he is a Victorian boy as well. So a bit of a lure there. But, it means that we now have our hands on a highly rated junior. And if he can get his body right, if we can get his body right and help develop him even further, and who knows what he could be. So, but let us know your thoughts as always down in the comment section below. Don't forget, of course, to give us a like and a subscribe as well, because we are, trying to aim towards that 1K subscriber mark. So if you are enjoying our content, please consider giving a subscribe. And with that, we'll see you in the next one. Go Baggers.
Have you ever heard